Few rulers in world history have left behind legacies as chilling and paradoxical as Ivan IV of Russia, better known as Ivan the Terrible. The first Tsar of Russia, his reign was a whirlwind of ambition, brutality, paranoia, and innovation. Though remembered primarily for his terror-driven rule, Ivan also laid the foundations of a centralized Russian state, forever altering the nation's trajectory. Yet what exactly made him so terrible? And is that epithet even the right word? Let's unravel the fascinating, horrifying story of a ruler who still haunts Russia's history. A prince shaped by neglect and cruelty. Ivan Vasilievich was born in 1530 into privilege, but his childhood was anything but comfortable. At just 3 years old, he lost his father, Grand Prince Vasily III of Moscow, to illness. Suddenly, the toddler became Grand Prince, technically the highest authority in the land, but in reality, he was little more than a pawn. Russia at the time was dominated by boyars, the aristocratic elite who schemed, backstabbed, and clawed for influence. They fought for power while neglecting the young heir, often leaving him hungry, isolated, and humiliated. This early trauma planted deep seeds of resentment and suspicion. The boy who watched nobles abuse their power would grow into a man determined to crush them. By age 16, Ivan officially took the throne, assuming the newly created title of Tsar of all Russia. With this title came not just authority, but divine legitimacy. He was ruler by God's will. The stage was set for his complex reign, Ivan's early years. Contrary to the blood-soaked reputation he carries today, Ivan's early rule was surprisingly progressive. With the help of his advisory council, known as the elected Rada, he launched reforms aimed at strengthening the state and improving daily governance. During this period, he introduced an updated law code that made justice more accessible and efficient. He also created the streltsy, Russia's first standing army, which gave him a military tool independent of the nobility. In addition, he encouraged limited self-government in local regions, an unusual step toward broader participation in governance. His early years also demonstrated deep ties to Christian theology, and he worked closely with the Orthodox Church to reinforce unity across his domain. For a time, it looked like Ivan might be remembered as a reformer who modernized Russia and set it on a stronger path. His reign began with a sense of order and optimism that Russia sorely needed. But history was about to take a much darker turn, from awe-inspiring to terrible. Interestingly, Ivan was not called terrible during his lifetime. The Russian word grozny attached to his name is better translated as formidable, fearsome, or awe-inspiring. Think of it in the sense of the terrible wrath of God, a force that inspires dread, not necessarily cruelty. However, Ivan would soon live up to the darker interpretation of that word. After the death of his beloved first wife, Anastasia Romanovna, in 1560, his personality hardened dramatically. Believing boyars had poisoned her, Ivan spiraled into paranoia and rage. His suspicion of treachery became an obsession, and his government began to reflect his fears. He dissolved the elected Rada, centralized his power, and divided Russia into two spheres. The first, the Zemshina, was governed traditionally. The second, the Oprichnina, was Ivan's personal domain, where he ruled unchecked. What happened in the Oprichnina would etch Ivan's name into infamy. The Oprichniki, terror in black. To enforce his will, Ivan created the Oprichniki, a fearsome band of enforcers loyal only to him. Dressed in black and riding black horses, they were more than just a police force. They were symbols of fear. They even carried grotesque emblems like dogs' heads to signify their ability to sniff out traitors, and brooms to symbolize their mission to sweep enemies away. Their purpose was simple but terrifying: to destroy the boyars and anyone else Ivan deemed suspicious. The Oprichniki carried out their tasks with horrific efficiency. Torture, executions, and mass killings became routine. One of the most infamous episodes occurred in 1570 during the Massacre of Novgorod. Ivan believed the city's leaders were plotting to defect to Poland, and in retaliation he unleashed his black-clad enforcers. thousands of people were drowned, burned alive, or tortured to death, including women and children. The Oprichniki transformed fear into a political weapon, and Ivan's reign into a theater of horror, madness, paranoia, and family tragedy. Historians believe Ivan may have suffered from mental illness, exacerbated by mercury poisoning, which was then used as medicine or as part of alchemical practices. Whether the cause was illness or paranoia, his behavior grew increasingly erratic. He saw plots everywhere, trusted no one, and lashed out violently, even against his own family. In 1581, during a heated argument, Ivan struck his son and heir, Ivan Ivanovich, with a staff, fatally wounding him. The painting Ivan the Terrible Killing His Son by Ilya Repin immortalizes the horror of a father cradling his dying child. This tragic event not only devastated Ivan personally, but also destabilized Russia's future. His surviving son, Fyodor I, lacked the strength and ability to rule effectively, plunging the nation into the time of troubles after Ivan's death. Ivan the Warmonger. Beyond his reign of terror at home, Ivan embroiled Russia in constant warfare. Some of his campaigns succeeded in expanding Russian territory. His most celebrated conquest was of Kazan and Astrakhan, which gave Russia a vital foothold into the Volga region and paved the way for expansion into Siberia. To commemorate this victory, Ivan commissioned the construction of St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow. The cathedral, with its colorful domes and striking architecture, became one of the city's most iconic landmarks. Other wars, however, proved disastrous. Prolonged conflicts with Poland, Lithuania, and Sweden drained the Russian treasury and decimated its population. These failed campaigns left the state weakened, even as its borders grew larger. Ivan's legacy as a military leader, therefore, is a mixture of triumph and catastrophe. Legacy of state building amid horror. For all his brutality, Ivan's reign left a lasting mark on Russia's political structure. By crushing the boyars and centralizing power under the Tsar, he created a stronger, more unified Russian state. His move away from a feudal patchwork of competing noble families toward a centralized autocracy set the template for future rulers. Historians note that his fiscal military reforms were groundbreaking for the region. Unlike the Mongol system of consultative rule or the looser traditions of Kievan Rus in Poland, Ivan forged a new kind of absolute authority. Russia's later czars and even Soviet leaders centuries later would inherit this model of governance. Yet his accomplishments cannot be separated from the horror he unleashed. The same centralization that strengthened Russia came at the cost of thousands of lives, and the atmosphere of fear he cultivated undermined trust in leadership for generations, the dark influence on future dictators. Ivan's reign did not end with his death in 1584. His image and methods continued to influence Russia for centuries. Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin admired Ivan, presenting his reign as a necessary, if bloody, step toward creating a strong Russia. Stalin used Ivan's example to justify his own purges and repression, claiming that sacrifices were inevitable for national greatness. Even today, President Vladimir Putin has referenced Ivan and Stalin as symbols of strong leadership, reinforcing the idea that Russia requires firm, uncompromising rulers. Ivan's shadow still looms large over the nation's political culture, the final years and death. By the final decade of his life, Ivan was a man consumed by cruelty, paranoia, and possible illness. Torture, executions, and property seizures became routine as he ruled by suspicion alone. When he finally died in 1584, examinations of his body revealed unusually high levels of mercury. Some historians believe he was poisoned, while others suggest he had been self-medicating or experimenting with alchemical rituals. What is certain is that Ivan left Russia both larger and stronger as a state, yet deeply scarred by violence and fear. His reign was a contradiction, at once progressive and destructive, visionary and monstrous. Ivan's contradictory legacy. Ivan IV remains one of history's most controversial rulers. Was he a state builder who modernized Russia, or a deranged tyrant who drowned it in blood? the truth lies somewhere in between. On the one hand, his reforms strengthened central authority, expanded Russia's borders, and laid the groundwork for a powerful state. On the other, his mass killings, paranoia-driven governance, and erratic brutality destabilized Russia and caused untold suffering. Even the meaning of his title reflects this ambiguity. Was he terrible in the sense of evil and monstrous, or terrible as in awe-inspiring and formidable? Perhaps, in the end, he was both. And that wraps up the story of Ivan the Terrible. If you enjoyed diving into this chilling chapter of history, make sure to hit that like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.